Hello, all, and welcome to the Second City Hockey Ice Cold Podcast. Rotating this time, I'll play host. This is Robert Zaglinski, as always, with Adam Hess. Adam, how are we doing tonight?
Pretty good. And I would just like to say, as we are switching back, that we had the most listens on the podcasts that I hosted. So
Are you really going to do that? You didn't even want to tell me that in the pre-show?
no, I wanted to say that to surprise you here, but also I don't really attribute that to myself. I attribute that to the fact that we've been working hard and being steady, producing content, hashtag content,
Hashtag Year of the Booty.
and more people are starting to listen in this year of the booty at Second City Hockey.
We, as Adam just said, we do appreciate all listeners. We appreciate you guys. Actually, we're putting a lot of time into this, and we're continually growing. It's no quit. Adam is a fantastic host. I wouldn't be surprised if all of the listens were because of him hosting. But anyway, we're gonna get started here.
Yes,
we're not.
You know what? We it's not really playing host. It's just kind of playing like MC because we tag team it anyway.
All right, I see you. So are we like DX from WWE? Was that a thing? Was that a thing?
Dude, that's a pretty good one. That's a good reference. Yeah.
Okay.
But if we're DX, I'm totally Shawn Michaels.
Oh no, I want to be Shawn Michaels.
Oh.
All right, hold on. We have shit to get to.
Okay.
We're not actually all good. The Blackhawks season ended last Monday. This is a bit of a post-mortem, bit of a look back on a season that was sometimes emotionally exhausting for all the wrong reasons. They ultimately bowed out in 7 games to the Blues. Adam, we're going to go back and forth on this. Were they too flawed to make a deep run?
I don't think that they were too flawed. I think that is I don't know. I think any team that doesn't win the championship, you could almost say, is too flawed to win a championship. You know what I mean? Like, every team that bows out has flaws that come back to bite them in the end. The Blues had flaws that almost came back to bite them in that series. And I just think that to say they were too flawed is a little bit of a weird bailout, kind of a cheap way to dismiss that. In my opinion, the Blackhawks just were not the better team in that series, and that might be a byproduct of them having been a flawed team. But I just think that overall, the Blues were just the better team, and I just think that is like the overarching thing. There's that at the end of the day, the Blues were a better team in that series, and that hurts to say because we hate the Blues. And we expect the Blackhawks to be the better team when it comes to playoff series, and we've come to expect that fairly because the Blackhawks have just basically just been that over the past 7 years. But this year, that just wasn't the case, and the Blues didn't necessarily blues as we expected, and in a lot of ways, the Blackhawks bluesed. So that's just kind of the way it went.
The Blues didn't blues because, like, I'll agree with you that ultimately the Blues were a better team, but I still think the Blackhawks had inherent flaws that ultimately came back to bite them. If they had one more competent defenseman, they're still probably playing right now. Like Brent Seabrook was running on fumes in the St. Louis series.
I don't even want to say that either, just because. Okay, I agree with that, but at the same time, you look at like. The Blackhawks, damn near won that series regardless of the fact that they didn't have one more competent defenseman. I mean, Sam Fells in his, year-end sort of look, piece at the Committed Indian just, talked about how the Blackhawks really were 4 posts on 2 shots away from winning this first-round series because they had 2 double posters in one series. I played hockey. It's hard as hell to hit a post regardless. Like, if you're trying to hit a post, it's fucking hard. When you play rat hockey and there's no goalies that show up, you just play posts, and like those games take forever because it's so hard to hit a post. So Brent Seabrook and Andrew Ladd could not do a double post again if you gave them 100 shots, I bet. But they just so happened to both do it at extremely inconvenient times. And that's just, I wrote, my thing where I said that the Blackhawks just weren't the better team this time, and that's because the best teams, the better teams in series are the teams that overcome the bad bounces. Even and as much as that second one, the Seabrook's double post in Game 7 came kind of late in that game, maybe a bad time to overcome it. There was other opportunities. Maybe it shouldn't even come to that point where they needed to overcome that, and that double poster, shouldn't have bit them in the ass regardless. And would another defenseman have, kept them from that position? Sure. But I still just think that to point at it and say they were just too flawed is just really, really weird to say, because we know the flaws of this team, but then they still damn near won it. So I don't think that it was flaws as much as just not being able to overcome the bad breaks that you had and losing to a team that was better than you. And I don't think I really don't think there's any shame in losing to a team that was better than you, even if it's the Blues.
Yeah, no, and it's happened before. I mean, they've had down years. 2012 against the Coyotes, 2011 against the Canucks. I mean, and even like in 2014, where they arguably probably would have won the cup if they were like the second best team in hockey, and they lost in Game 7 to the eventual Stanley Cup champions Canes. I mean, it happens. They can't win every year. And this year, I had an inherent bias when I picked them to win the cup at the end of the season. But I also thought that maybe, Corey Crawford goes Tim Thomas or something. And in some ways he did, but he couldn't carry a team. And I see your point. Like, the Blues were still better. The Blues were still absolutely better. They were a better team. They deserved to be playing the second round. They were the ones that were able to overcome those bad bounces and the posts and whatever kinds of crazy, wacky shit happens in hockey. But, I mean, I don't know. This team maybe just was never built well enough. I'm not sure if they had won that series, is what my point is. I'm not sure how confident I would be them playing against the Stars right now, and the Stars' speed and offensive prowess just absolutely tearing apart that defense and terrorizing Corey Crawford. That's my only point. Against the Blues, it doesn't matter because the Blues were better. But my overall arching thing was a deep run, and maybe how I should have let the reins back a little bit on that. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I guess I just think, to me, that's sort of a hindsight 2020 kind of deal, where you say, even if the Blackhawks had beat the Blues, I would not have been confident against the Stars. Fuck that. I would have been confident against the Stars, because the thing is, if you look at the Blackhawks playoff history, and I think it was Fifth Feather from the Committed Indian that noted this last year, teams that beat the Blackhawks in the playoff series, or in a playoff series, don't do it until they get their second shot. Like, even the Kings, who were probably the best team in that 3-year span from 2012 to 2014, because they won two of those 3 Stanley Cups. They couldn't even knock out the Blackhawks in 2013. Now, that was probably the best iteration of the Blackhawks that we have seen in these last 7 years. But my point is just, the Kings needed 2 shots to beat the Blackhawks, and even when they got that second shot, it took them overtime in a Game 7. This was the Blues' second shot at the Blackhawks, because you kind of trace it back to 2014, where the cores of these teams are largely similar. And even then, it still took the Blues until Game 7. So, and I'm sort of getting off topic. My point is, I still would have been confident against the Stars. I just think that for me, I didn't pick the Blackhawks to win the Stanley Cup. I didn't pick them at the start of the season. I didn't pick them at the start of the playoffs. I had them winning the West at the start of the season, and I had them in the West final at the start of the playoffs. But I never thought that this team was good enough to win the Stanley Cup. And I shouldn't say not good enough. They were not better than other teams, is I guess what I mean more than by that more than anything. But at the end of the day, I just think that the Blackhawks losing is in some weird ways almost like a blessing. I write for the Rock River Times, which is a paper in Rockford that has a really good relationship with the Ice Hogs, actually. And I was writing my sort of post-mortem piece, and I talked about how prior to the start of the 2015-16 NHL season, the Hawks had played 654 NHL games in preseason and postseason only, not counting preseason, since the start of the 2008-09 season. That's a lot of hockey. And then before this series, if you add the 82 games that they had played before before the playoffs started, that's 736 games in an 8-year span. That's a whole lot of hockey. Plus, you add in the fact that Brent Seabrook, Duncan Keith, Jonathan Toews, Patrick Kane, Nicholas Chalmers, Marcus Kruger have all been guys tasked to go to the Olympics and play more hockey there, and plus all-star games. Like, these guys play a whole lot of fucking hockey. And it's, I don't want to blame fatigue because that's kind of an easy way out. But at the same time, the Blackhawks have played so much hockey. They've played, 11 playoff series in the last 3 years. The Blues had played 6 in the last 6 years or 4 years or whatever. Like, at some point, those miles catch up to you. That was one of the things that a lot of people pointed to with the 2015 Kings, that when they missed the playoffs was they had injuries and they had mileage, because they had just done the same thing the Blackhawks had done, was, play 11 playoff series in 3 years. That's going to catch up to you. And the Blackhawks damn near won a 12th. But it's just, at the end of the day, I just don't think that it's, inherent flaws as much as a little bit of the fatigue issue, and the Blues really just being a better team than the Blackhawks, and maybe just the best team in the Central.
We'll wait on that best team in the Central talk, but yeah, and that fatigue thing is sort of multiplied by having to rely more on your core. So maybe I should have had more foresight in that sense. How open is this window still, this championship window? Because this is a conversation that's going to come up anytime a generational team doesn't win the goal. Because the goal with this franchise, one goal, whatever crap you want to have with that advertising, and how serious they take that. They have Jonathan Toews. They have guys like Duncan Keith, Corey Crawford, Patrick Kane, whatever. Every goal, every year, they don't win the Stanley Cup. I guess in that mind, it's a failure because of the caliber of players they don't have. Like, I don't necessarily agree with it, but if that's how you're going to look at it, this is their championship window. How open is that championship window still?
I still think it's very open. You look at the core that they have; it's still intact. They still are going to have Artemi Panarin. They're still going to have Teuvo Teravainen, unless the meatballs are to be pleased by some fucking weird-ass trade. They're hopefully going to get Nick Schmaltz. They just signed Luke Johnson, who could probably compete for a bottom 6 role. They still have Marcus Kruger, who's probably the best checking line center in the NHL. They still have Duncan Keith, who probably is the most impactful defenseman in the NHL. Nicholas Hjalmarsson has a fantastic contract and is wildly underpaid for how valuable he is to this team. Corey Crawford's still going to be in net. And as much as people talk about the cap hell, Stan Bowman has proven to be able to field a good team around, the core regardless. And if guys like Richard Panik can be re-signed, if a guy like Thomas Fleischman can be re-signed to cheap contracts, they're going to have effective depth as well. The key is going to be if they can build a more competent defensive core. They're going to need another. They basically need a Johnny Oduya. That's what they're looking for at this point. And maybe, we talked about this not long ago with the Trevor Van Riemsdyk thing, where, it's clear that Coach Q sees promise in him. Maybe they kind of see Trevor Van Riemsdyk kind of becoming a Johnny Oduya type. I don't think that that's necessarily the case. I think that they're going to have to look and see if they can maybe free some cap space and go after someone maybe like Jason Demers in free agency. But overall, I think that, if they can get, at least one, they really just need one effective defenseman to add to the depth of that squad. They will be right back in the championship hunt next year.
Yeah, and they'll have that with Polka coming up, hopefully, if he's panning out, and maybe if they, like you said, they're signing a veteran. For me, it's just going to be about how they're able to retain these guys. I mean, I'm not sure if I'm considering them a Stanley Cup contender, but maybe in 2 years they're back in that prime year. Maybe next year's a resool year. How are they going to be able to keep Panarin? How are they going to be able to have Teuvo continue to progress along? These are going to be the keys if they want to win that 4th cup in 8 years or that 4th cup in 9 years. We're not sure. The salary cap is tight as hell, probably by far. considering all of the core players they have locked up. Q's still going to mess around with Tavo. We know that. Q's still going to mess around with the young guys that come up because that we're going to need to contribute quickly. Not as quickly as Q would want, but they're going to have to develop into real legitimate players. Nick Schmaltz might be shoehorned into a first line role too quickly, but that's probably where he might eventually end up. These guys are going to have to come along really fast. I have confidence that they will. These are just questions that will have to be answered and will probably have to be rectified. That's like that. These are the things that have to happen for the next cup to happen, in my mind at least.
Yeah, and I agree with all of those points, and I think that overall, the Blackhawks are just built to be a playoff contender, and it doesn't really matter about their regular season success. I just think that they're, if they can keep Richard Panik, if they can keep Thomas Fleischmann, which are, those are big ifs. Panik is a RFA, so the likelihood there's a lot, higher. But if they can keep him and, use guys like Ryan Hartman or Mark McNeil and give themselves effective depth at the bottom of the, in the bottom six for next year, they're really going to be one piece away from being a legit contender. And when you look at how they responded to not winning the Stanley Cup since they've had Joel Quenneville behind the bench in basically what we're calling, the Taves Kane era. 2009, they lose in the Western Conference Final, come back next year, win the Stanley Cup. 2010 and 11, they fall short. So 2011 is sort of the outlier here, but 2012, they fall short. 2013, win the Cup. 2014, fall short. 2015, win the Cup. 2016, fall short. 2017, I'm not going to say that they're going to win the Cup, but I'm just saying they've responded so well to these situations. Stan Bowman has shown a propensity to build such a good, effective depth and be able to build around this core. And as much as, the Brent Seabrook contract already looks bad, as much as, they're going to have to figure out a way to get value for Andrew Shaw if they want to move him, or to hopefully move Brian Bickle, even if it just is for a bag of pucks, even if it's just for half a fucking puck. They're going to have to figure that stuff out. And I think I trust Stan Bowman to do it, truthfully. I know we railed against him a couple weeks ago. I trust Stan Bowman to get it done. And I really think that next year the Blackhawks are going to be a team that is in a position to go for another Stanley Cup.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's for me, it's okay to think that, in hindsight especially, it's in hindsight, I know, it's okay to think that Bowman made some bad roster moves this year, that maybe going all in with all the moves he made at the trade deadline wasn't in hindsight the best moves, that weren't in hindsight the best moves, and also think that he's still a top 5 GM, that he's still probably the best general manager in hockey, and he's still the right guy to bring them back to the promised land. It's okay to think that. It's okay to criticize him, but also recognize that, you can't – it doesn't always work out the way you plan it. That's my mindset.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point, that it's, in – Bowman not getting a defense at the trade deadline is, in all of our minds, the mistake. That was the hole. I had my remix to Ignition tweet where I said that it's the remix to Ignition 2016 Blackhawks edition. When I went at the deadline, forgot to get a defenseman. That it blew up on Twitter because it's funny. I did a good tweet. But
you did a good tweet, Adam,
and that I'm not trying to toot my own horn there, but the point is that, that is like the perception that people have, is that was the mistake. That was what they missed out on. But you look at it even at the locker room clean out press conference, they said, we like the depth we have on this team. They trust what they have. And, as much as I look at the roster and we look at the roster and think, gosh, that defense is so thin. Like, they need a defenseman. If they trust it and they trust that they can bring Ville Polka in, or go get a defenseman in free agency or via trade, even if it's just a guy that's going to play, 14 minutes a night, if he can be effective in those 14 minutes a night, and if Joe Quenneville can trust him in those 14 minutes a night, that is what they need. And I really think that that's the piece that they're going to miss for next year, Like, or that's the piece that's missing right now. You need that standout fourth defenseman. And even, maybe Trevor Van Riemsdyk can become that, but you still need like that 4 or 5 guy. I guess is more what I'm saying is you need a guy that can be that kind of fill that fourth role or that 5 role, just depending on how you want to rearrange the defense. And then that's the missing link to help this team, because you can play patchwork with number 6, but you need a solid 4 or 5 in between guy to kind of go back and forth with Trevor Van Riemsdyk.
I'm just putting it out there. The Oilers are looking for a defenseman, and Trevor Van Riemsdyk played heavy top 4 minutes. I'm just saying, if they wanted to give us the number 4 overall pick, I wouldn't be mad.
Okay, well,
value.
Okay, you know what? In that
he
case,
played a lot of minutes. He played a lot of minutes.
Okay, if they offer the number 4 overall pick, I'll take it. Especially if the Blackhawks can get Jacob Chitrin from the Sarnia Sting, because he's going to be a fucking stud, and he'd be a very good young defenseman for the Blackhawks. But I want to, I kind of want to circle back real quick, because something that came to mind is just, you asked how open is the championship window still. I think in a lot of ways, the championship window for the Blackhawks is almost non-existent anymore, because it's basically just like they've blown through that championship window. They won 3 in 6 years. Like, they're not even concerned about the championship window anymore. They're concerned about, can they win next year? You know what I mean? Every year it's just about next year. And then once season starts, it's about this year. So right now, they're out of it. So it's gone now, but next year is about now it's about next year. And then once the season starts, it's going to be about that year. It's going to be about this year, and it's going to be about winning the Stanley Cup that year. And if they don't win it the next year, then, they can still say, hey, look, we won it last year. And I think that's kind of, I guess
it's a season by season basis. What you're saying.
What I'm getting at here is that people say like, oh, they shouldn't have gone all in this year. But when you have this core, every year is an all-in year. It's kind of like, people say like every playoff game is a must-win game. Every year with this core, you want the Stanley Cup.
It's must-win. It's must-win every year.
Not to get too dramatic and apocalyptic feeling, but every year that you don't win a year with the Stanley Cup don't win the Stanley Cup with this core is sort of a wasted year. And I don't, waste is kind of a harsh term, but, with this core that you have, you should be able to be competing for the cup and, potentially win the cup every single year. And so when you don't do it, that's falling short of what your goal is. But at the same time, you just go to next year and you say, okay, we didn't do it this year. Guess what? We can focus on next year. And this is the part that I think, some people might disagree with this, but if the Blackhawks don't win another Stanley Cup with Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane, I'll still be extremely satisfied with their era of the Blackhawks, because they brought 3 Stanley Cups in 6 years. They brought, as many Stanley Cups in 6 years as the Blackhawks had in their entire existence prior to that, ended a drought. And, this is basically the golden era of Blackhawks hockey. It's probably never getting better than this. And, it's kind of weird to kind of have to admit that to yourself, and kind of come to terms with that.
I mean, you have to understand these are the best players they've ever had. So
right, and I think maybe it's just because I'm so young that I'm at 21 years old, I look at the fact that this is the best era of Hawks hockey ever, and I think, oh my gosh, if I get to live 60 more years, God willing, I'm probably never going to see an era of Blackhawks hockey this good ever again. And that's it's almost defeating, but at the same time, like I said, I can be happy with the fact that they were so successful in this span, and they've built a foundation of success that if this front office regime moves forward and can kind of bring other kind of mentor along another GM to take the spot, other team presidents, they can, there's going to be a culture of success within the Blackhawks now for years. And that's going to be important, because even if they can't have eras like this Toews Kane era where they're winning 3 and 6, maybe they can win the one-off every once in a while. And that's, every time you win the Stanley Cup, that's what you take joy in. You don't really need, you don't need to win it every year, because even just getting one will be satisfactory. You want to win it every year, but I don't know, maybe I'm getting off topic here and kind of saying more than what I meant to say, but I just think, my larger point here is that it's not all doom and gloom. The Blackhawks can still win Stanley Cups. Even if they don't, we don't need to look at it as failures because of all the success that they've already had.
Listen, Adam, I want them to bunch up as many cups as possible. They're
me too.
All my toys. I want this group to bunch up as many toys as possible. But I'm going to put you on the spot here. I'm going to be that cliche guy. And this is what we have to do after the end of every season in my mind. That's what I've always done with my old man, especially after winning cups. But you have to do it after losses too. How many more Stanley Cups does Jonathan Toews win as a member of the Chicago Blackhawks?
Let's see. He has 7 years left on his contract. I would say at least.
He's not going to be great. He's not going to be great that whole time.
I would say at least 2.
You're going to say 2?
At least.
I would probably agree with that. I will not go higher than that. I think just 2.
Yeah, I don't want to say. I
hate to do these kinds of questions, but these are things we talk about, like how things will work out. And I said it after last year's Cup too, without even taking into consideration of a repeat this year.
Mm-hmm.
2. I said 2.
I said when they signed the contract, even knowing then that the contract hadn't kicked in, I said in that contract the Hawks will win 2 Stanley Cups, and if you win 2 in 8 years, that's a success. You know what I mean? Talking to Kings fans, I'm sure that Kings fans would say if they never ever win a Stanley Cup ever again, they can look back on the 2012 to 14 run, and even this year when they were such a good team, like this era of Kings hockey, and think that was good. We're satisfied with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. If you get too greedy for Stanley Cups and you decide that you're unsatisfied with not having one in some years, that's not necessarily being a bad fan, but if you can't enjoy what happened and appreciate what happened for the fact that it happened, then that is getting to me, that's just getting a little bit too greedy, a little bit too, cup hungry. If you can't, if you have to look back on the Blackhawks Taze Kane era and think, oh, it's such a failure, they didn't win enough Stanley Cups, because if they never win ever again, then you're ignoring the fact that they were the most dominant team for so long in this time. Even if they only won 3 of the Cups, they made 4 Western Conference Finals appearances in this time. You know what I mean? And I don't want to make this an in memoriam of the Taze Kane era, because it's still going on, and it's going to keep going on. But I guess my point is just, we don't have to be disappointed in. I shouldn't say not disappointed. We can be disappointed they didn't win the Stanley Cup, but we shouldn't look at it at this year as a failure. And because, like I said before, they weren't really they weren't the best team. And so while I kind of contradicted myself by my earlier saying that every year you don't win is a little bit of a failure, my point is just, they don't have to win every year for this era to be validated. That would be obviously way, way preferable. But, this is still a good era of Blackhawks hockey, even if they never win ever again, I guess. I don't know. And I'm not saying that they won't ever win ever again. I just said I think they'll win 2 more. But that's my larger point here.
Knock on wood, the dominant era continues. Adam, we haven't really touched on it much in this podcast, but we have to. We have a responsibility. It's something that's probably nagged it away at us when we haven't really admitted it in any sense, largely at least over a microphone. How much of the off-ice issues will define the memories of this season, and then even probably into the future? You had your best player involved in sexual assault allegations. You had revenge porn allegations. You actually had on ice. It technically, was the Shaw homophobic slur on ice? Well, it's not. It's like the bench, but it's within play. So you have that. Am I forgetting something?
I don't think so.
Oh, yeah, okay, so you have those 3 incidences. You have a less than favorable season. I mean, there's some individual milestones, but the Blackhawks clearly were a weaker team. How much will the 2015-2016 season defined by just awful public relations and awful mishandlings by an organization that should know better, or at least hopefully know better?
I have kind of a 2-part answer. I would say not as much as it should. And I think, in the minds of many people, it will very much define this year, very much define the Blackhawks franchise in some ways too, that they did not handle those situations as well as they probably should have. In terms of Blackhawks history and the way that the media will look on them, probably not at all. To me, I don't want to say it defines it to me. I would say that it was a huge part of it, and I'm frustrated and disappointed in the way that those situations worked out. But I don't think that they're the defining factors, really. I think that they will be I think the sexual assault issue. I was going to say charges, but there were no charges. The sexual assault investigation with Patrick Kane will end up being a defining part of his career. When he retires, we saw it with Kobe Bryant. When he retires, it will be discussed again. It might not be discussed until then, maybe. It probably should be, but we don't want to forget that happened. As much as he was not charged, and so we can't necessarily say that. I'm one of the people that I'm not going to get all aboard the anti-Patrick Kane, train because of the fact that he was not charged. But I'm still, sort of apprehensive about him. I don't think it will define his career. I think it will be a major, yeah.
A huge
I don't want to say footnote either. I think it will be a major storyline in his career. But overall, I just don't think that this 2015-16 season will end up being defined by that. I would say if I had to pick one of the three that I think would be obviously stand out the most, would be the Patrick Kane one. The Andrew Shaw one, he seemed genuinely apologetic in his,
Chris Hine gave a nice account of that. Yeah. That he personally apologized to him. The beat reporter for the Tribune.
Right, and Chris Hine, Chris Hine handled it wonderfully. Andrew Shaw, I feel like, handled it very well.
For those that don't know, Chris Hine is gay, so there was a personal touch to it. But Adam, go on.
Yeah, so Chris Hine, openly gay beat writer for the Blackhawks from the Tribune, and very good writer, and he handled that situation so well. Where he came out right away and he said, "I do not think Andrew Shaw is a homophobe. This doesn't define who he is. He is a person who had a lapse in judgment, and and made a mistake. And I don't hope that ends up being a defining thing for Andrew Shaw. I don't want Andrew Shaw to be labeled homophobe, gay hater, anything like that, because I truly do believe that, as much as the heat of the moment is not an excuse, I don't think that he looked so shaken up in that press conference that I don't think that'll be a defining moment of his career. I think he genuinely learned from it. I can't speak because I don't know him, but from on the outside and just from what Chris Hine talked about, it seemed like Shaw was able to learn from it, at least in that short amount of time, and hopefully forever from here on out. And then, the Garrett Ross thing, the Blackhawks did not handle that well, but if he is gone, if they don't re-sign him, then it probably is a non-starter. It can be pointed to for the way that they handled it like that, but at the same time, I just think that it won't be a huge deal anymore, just because of the fact that if he's gone, as much as they did not handle it well, they can just, they've distanced themselves, and it's kind of, I don't know, over. And Garrett Ross probably has no NHL future, so he'll just be the AHL player who got charged with revenge porn.
See, and I agree with all that, but I don't know. It's just, I'd be lying if it didn't nag on me. I mean, maybe we can be back to having, happy hockey next year, as long as nothing happens. Please, nothing happen again. Please have better judgment, all of you, as long as nothing happens in advance of next season or during next season. But I'd be lying if it didn't drag on me. See, the thing for me is, when the Blackhawks are making a deep Stanley Cup run, that's emotionally exhausting, right? That's emotionally exhausting.
Definitely.
But in a good way. In a good way. Like you're living and dying with the team, but when they win a game, when they win a triple overtime game in like the Western Conference Finals or something, like you're ecstatic. But this was a different kind of emotional exhausting, and there wasn't as much of an escape to me because the team wasn't as good. And I hate to shoehorn it like that, like that sports should have me forget these awful things. But with the team on a downturn, and then all of these awful, like just how the franchise handled it, in a sense, I don't want to paint myself as especially like as you said, Kane wasn't officially charged in this, so maybe we should. But they need to show that they care more. The way they handle it seemed dismissive. So did the revenge porn. We didn't hear about that for months.
And then they reinstate him as soon as charges are dropped.
They reinstated him. So there's no foresight in anything and how they worked through everything. And the point for example, that I saw someone, Brendan, who we talk to frequently on Twitter, I'll use it as a disclaimer, to act like any other franchise, if presented with these kinds of situations, we don't know, we can't tell for sure, but would have handled it differently is probably naive. But the fact that it actually happened to the Blackhawks is so much worse. And one can only hope that they actually learn from it. I mean, to be this franchise that they market themselves as, that they put out these one goal slogans, that it's more than just the on ice hockey, that they actually are this model franchise that they've supposedly become. That's my hope. And hopefully the 2016-2017 season is much more enjoyable in every facet. Even though, I mean, I still had fun at times during the year. There were highlights, and we'll talk about that right in a second. But this was a low point. This was a low point, and I really need to see a launch back up in every way.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, it was definitely emotionally exhausting to see all that happen. Highly, hugely disappointing the way that the Blackhawks sort of paraded Patrick Kane out to that press conference at Notre Dame, and just only wanted to talk about hockey and all that garbage, and that was just so ridiculous and embarrassing almost. As a Blackhawks fan, I was embarrassed. I didn't get to watch the actual press conference, but I was just embarrassed, like reading some of the quotes and reading the reports out of that press conference. Like, this is like being horribly handled. And I mean, in that particular instance, maybe they had some inside information, and they were obviously in contact with Patrick Kane, and so I'm sure that they maybe felt more confident in that situation than many of us fans did. That doesn't excuse the way they handled it, though. That could be an explanation, but it's not an excuse. And the Garrett Ross thing, to me, there's no explaining that away. To hide it, until Chris Block from Third Man In reports it, then address it by suspending him indefinitely, then to waste zero time. I think he was reinstated within 2 hours after the charges were dropped. Like, I don't know. That just I remember seeing I think it was an anonymous interview, because it's been so long since I read it, but I think it was an anonymous interview with the girl who was the victim of that Garrett Ross thing, and she just said, like, she was devastated by that. And how dehumanizing is that, to have someone who's wronged you in that way? Just
weird because of jurisdiction, literally.
Right. It was jurisdiction, and they couldn't really press charges on him anymore. But then the Blackhawks, they couldn't. I don't know. They couldn't move on any faster. They just, they immediately had him reinstated, and he was back with the team right away. And my hope was that he was not going to play at all, but it looked like they, instead it looked like they hadn't really learned it all from the Patrick Kane thing, and the poor way they handled that, and the bad reception, and just the fact that they are so willing to like present themselves as this model franchise, and that everybody is willing to say, oh my gosh, they do so much well, they are a model franchise, when they're handling those situations like that is embarrassing. And I don't want to rail too hard against them. Like I'm sure that if I could have a conversation with John McDonough and company, I could probably understand the way that they're thinking in those situations. I'm sure that in some ways their thinking process was made a little bit of sense. Maybe not in areas that I would agree with, and doesn't necessarily mean I would agree with it, but I'm sure that they had you know, at least semi-logical reasons for the way they acted, but that doesn't make the way that they acted any better. Um, and so that's just the way I feel about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, for me, as the final point, we're not condemning this organization completely. That I think we can agree with that. Hopefully, they do learn from this year. Hopefully, I don't hope another instance happens, but if another instance happens, because this league seems to be ridden with these kinds of issues, that they handle it the proper fashion next time, and they just they let us just enjoy good hockey from here on out. I'm sort of on your stance. I'm more apprehensive about Patrick Kane. I don't hate Patrick Kane. I'm more cautious and apprehensive. I'm not. For me, I'm not condemning someone like him because we don't. But like you said, I'm cautious. I'm not sure how to receive him. I guess. I mean, if I'm gonna be honest, I guess I still celebrate if he scores, but it's just different.
Yeah,
it's just different. I still celebrate, but it's just different. And maybe it changes, maybe it doesn't. But that's how I feel.
Yeah, for me, one of the keys for the way that I've decided to approach it is not necessarily against Patrick Kane, but about how I would be perceived for supporting Patrick Kane. I don't want people, I haven't worn my Patrick Kane jersey, or I have a Team USA, jersey of Patrick Kane. I haven't worn either of those since then because I don't want to be someone that is looked at as ignoring those issues. Or, if I were to walk by someone that's been hurt by, sexual assault or anything like that, that they would think I'm not safe around that person. They're like an apologist. So it's not necessarily that I think that Patrick Kane is flat out guilty, and that's why I'm unwilling to, blatantly support him. But I am much more apprehensive, just because of I don't want to be, viewed in a way like that. I want people to, feel like they can. I guess trust me, yeah. And they can be comfortable with me, and that I'm someone that can empathize with them and understand them, and someone that can sort of be like a listening ear, I guess. Even if I don't need to be that way, but I would much rather prefer that they not. I don't even need them to think that way as much as I just would prefer them not to think that I'm someone that they cannot trust. You know what I mean? I guess I don't need to be someone that they think they can trust, but I just don't want to be someone they don't think that they can trust, or that they don't think they can trust. And I don't think that I need to be, I lost my train of thought there, but I was just going to, one of the ways that I've been apprehensive towards Patrick Kane is, when the Blackhawks score goals, I tweet out like the little red light emojis with whoever's name is in there. And for all but one Patrick Kane goal this year, I tweeted goal. The only one that had Kane in it was when he scored the overtime goal against the Blues in games 5, yeah, because that was like a heat of the moment thing. I didn't even think about it. And it just kind of, I was like, oh my gosh, Patrick Kane scored, and I just tweeted Kane. But otherwise, that was a way that I kind of backed off of it. And a lot of people said, I respect that and I appreciate that you have done that. But overall, I hope that doesn't define this season for the Blackhawks, because that would be a very bad way to define this season for the Blackhawks.
Yeah, absolutely. And however things move forward, for listeners that I'll cap this before we get back to happier thoughts and happier reflections. for listeners that didn't appreciate this conversation, that are still here, we had to have this. We haven't had it all year, Adam. I think we really did. There was no better time than now, finally, at least. I mean, there's better late than never. Hopefully nothing, again, as I said, happens again. Hopefully someone like Kane learns from his mistakes. If legitimately nothing happened that night, we'll never know. But you know what I'm saying? Like, just move forward and at least understand that we had to talk about this, that we had to touch on this. We still appreciate your support, you know, but it would be irresponsible not for us to air out our feelings, right? I mean, that's perfectly understandable.
Yeah, I agree with you.
All right, let's move on to reflections. Let's lighten the mood back up a little bit, or at least try to. Okay, Adam, you had this thought. Favorite moments, most improved player. We can go down the line here. There's going to be like a sort of quick blurbs on each of these things because we got to get to some more stuff. Most disappointing player, least favorite moments, best story of the season, all that jazz.
Okay, my favorite moment of the season was probably banner night, and just how Artemi Panarin, you know, comes in, scores his first goal on his first shot. They ended up losing that game, but anytime you raise a banner, that's lots of fun. And that was awesome that they were able to do that. And that was, you know, that game was fun even though they lost. And I think a close second would just be the 12-game win streak, which was super awesome.
Yeah, they didn't lose. For me, the favorite moment, and you know, I think it's a little bit of recency bias, but Game 6. I don't know. It kind of served to me as a reminder that like this team is that window is still open. That even if they were going to lose Game 7, like that it takes multiple knockout punches to knock out like the champion, the team of this generation, and just like how they went on like they scored 5 unanswered goal attempts. They eviscerated the Blues from the second period on. Like this team, no matter what happens, no matter how things progress from this point on, no matter how many more championships they win, and whoever has them on the edge, like it was just another reminder to me that you have to do the double tap with the Blackhawks. You know, from Zombieland, you have to do the double tap because they're gonna come back off the mat. If you don't blow up their zombie head, they're gonna come back. They're gonna get you. Like that's for me what it was. It was just so enjoyable to watch. Like that I still have this kind of team. Okay, least favorite moment. Well, okay, so least favorite moment sans all of the conversation we just had.
Yeah. I would say my least favorite moment was the game against the Blues. I think it was in November when the Blackhawks were winning like 5-1 or something like that in the first period. I'm misremembering it probably, but basically they had a huge lead and they blew the game and lost in overtime 6-5. And I thought, well, that really sucked. And then, I mean, obviously the end of the season when it was actually over is up there too. But I think, you know, of the regular season, it was definitely that game against the Blues where they lost in that fashion. That just was that was a tough loss to take.
You know, for me, I know it was part of their March thing, and you and I both went to this game. But man, I dropped all that money to go see them play this, like the Kings, and what should have been a great hockey game. And just God, I'm a guy that never leaves early, and I still didn't. But I wanted to so bad, just so lethargic, just no response, just the way they played just absolutely disgusted me. And maybe I say that as a spoiled fan, but also just like, you know, when you spend all that money and you're sitting there like and to lose 5-0 in what should have been this Titanic. I think it was even on NBC. We were there, so I don't know, but I think it was even on NBC Sports Network. So it's like a national game, and just like to not show up. I've never felt like so energy-less. That's not even a word. Energy-less, I'll say it anyway, than I was in person than I was at that game, and just wasn't fun. And I think you'll agree with me about how unfun it was. I mean, you were sitting with the Kings fan too, so
yeah, I was there with Aaron, and that, you know, he was having a good time. So
that exacerbated it for you. So.
Yeah, it was definitely a defeating game. That did suck.
All right. Most disappointing. Okay, so most improved player, most surprising player. We can do either or.
I would say this might be a little bit of a cop out. I'd say probably the most improved player was Patrick Kane. Just the way he, not that he has not been an elite forward, and we talked about how last year he had a great year prior to his injury, but to just come out and be the best, most dominant player in the NHL from start to finish was something that we hadn't really seen from him. He had in the past been sort of streaky, and so to put up 106 points this year, win the Art Ross Trophy, probably going to win the Hart Trophy. I know that a lot of people sort of do the cause and effect thing with like he had that tumultuous off season and that led to this great regular season. I'm not going to do that. I just think that he, it's impressive to me that he was able to come back from, he didn't even have necessarily the most, uh, overwhelmingly strong playoff performance in last year's 2015 Cup run. And so I just think like to come back this year and from the very beginning, just be the best player from start to finish and be that good was really awesome. And I think that in a lot of ways is why he was probably the most improved player in my mind.
In my mind, I'm not sure how much he doesn't get as much. He still doesn't get as much accolades as he should. But Crawford enjoyed his best professional season ever. To this point, and not ever. To this point, I mean, he could still have more great seasons. But much of that 12-game winning streak was him just being an absolute wall, winning games for the Blackhawks that they shouldn't have been in whatsoever. He faltered off a little bit in March once the wear and tear started to get to him, and then he had a mysterious head injury. But he was the second best goalie, if not the best goalie all year, considering that he had the worst defense in front of him. He faced by far the most high-danger chances he's ever faced in his career or in the NHL this season, and just how smooth and calm he makes it. I just look at it. The thing I look at with Corey Crawford is, as like what's comforting for me as a fan, is when I'm watching a game and I see him make a save, or if I see someone going on a breakaway against him, I'm not panicking. Maybe I'll rise up in my seat a little bit, but I feel like a level of comfort because it seems like he just has a level of comfort and he just raised his game to a completely new level that we've never seen before in how he played. That Game 7, some of the strings against the Blues, ultimately he didn't finish off with the great statistics from that game, but the saves he was making, the strings of saves he was making with completely out of position, working out there, bailing out his defense, bailing out his teammates, it was ridiculous. And it was just so much fun to watch, Adam. So much fun to watch.
Yeah, his season was fantastic, and I would say overall he was probably the Blackhawks' most important player this year.
You wrote about how he wasn't a Vezina candidate, and that's a joke, but that's a different conversation altogether.
Yeah. I just think him not getting a Vezina candidate finalist position is so asinine. Just the
wins.
Jeff Merrick from Sportsnet, he had probably the tweet of the night that day where general managers say all the time that they have no clue how to judge goalies and that goalies are so hit and miss, and yet they're the ones in charge of voting for the damn award. And I think that's like the only award that they are really in charge of voting for. It's so confusing. And wins are a team stat. Like, and it's different. Like in baseball, you point to like pitcher wins. Those are important. When Jake Arrieta won 22 games last year for the Cubs, that was super impressive. Because you don't play every day as a starting pitcher. As a starting pitcher in baseball, you start maybe 35 games a year if you're an ace. And, probably less than that. Most pitchers aren't starting, more than 30, if they even get there. So to win, 20 of them is obviously super impressive. And you get a win, and in baseball, a goalie, the starting pitcher doesn't pitch the whole game most games. So that's a lot different. In hockey, the win is a team stat. The goalie in baseball, a pitcher can win a game for you. In hockey, a goalie can't win the game for you alone. You know what I mean? Like, you need to go score goals too. And I guess in baseball, you need to score runs too. But a goalie can keep you in a game, but he can't. And he can take over a game as well, but he can't score the goals and really end up winning the game for you. And it's so weird to point to wins alone as the big, just the big factor, I guess, in there. And that's kind of what they did.
Least disappointing, I think we'll have a consensus here. Brent Seabrook.
Okay, you can go ahead and talk about Seabrook.
I understand why he had a down year. People will point to that he had his best offensive season ever, but that's because he took Patrick Sharp's spot in the power play. But that doesn't justify why he was so abhorrent and disgustingly bad defensively. How he seemed to lose more than a step, and how it seemed by mid-season guys were easily beating him to loose pucks and on breakaways more often than ever before. And people were pointing to the fact that he didn't have great partners, but it used to be the fact that was a guy who could play with anybody, that could babysit anybody. This was a guy that was playing with Kimmo Tiedemann for 2 periods in the Stanley Cup Finals last season, and he just took such a step back. Again, ultimately, if the Blackhawks in my mind, didn't even have 3 good defensemen this year. They had 2 good defensemen and a guy who could play well on the power play. We'll see how the fatigue. I have a hunch, as we discussed earlier, that it was a lot of the fatigue. He's 31, so he probably lost a step anyway. But I think the 5 months will do him well, and he'll come back well. He'll have a better partner likely next year too. So it'll. But for limited to this season, he was the most disappointing for me.
I don't think you're gonna like my answer for who I think was the most disappointing player. And I think a lot of people might argue with me about it or may not like it. But for me, the most disappointing Blackhawk this season was Marian Hossa. And I know that a lot of it was shooting percentage and bad luck, but to only produce 33 points this year and score 13 goals, and he did miss 6. He missed, I think it was 18 games. He's played 64 games, so that's 18 games due to injury. But to me, just playing with Jonathan Toews in that top line, and then they kind of had mishmash partners for a lot of the year. But I just think that we expected a lot more out of Marian Hossa and didn't quite get it. And I just, I know that Hossa has, is, often referred to as the demigod and the like, but just to the season that he didn't, the season that he didn't have, the season that he didn't have that we, sorry, I'm just trying to think about, I was trying to think of how I wanted to say it. The season that he didn't have that we thought he was going to have, and the season that he did have, like, I don't know, that sounds really fucked up. The season that he had was disappointing compared to what we thought he was going to have.
He was disappointing, Adam. Just say it. God.
There. Marian Hossa disappointed me. I think he was the most disappointing Blackhawk. As bad as Brent Seabrook was at times, he contributed a lot on the power play. He had a lot of power play points. That was good. 5-on-5, he wasn't that great. You hit all the points that I would talk about if I was going to say Brent Seabrook was the most disappointing. But to me, it was Marian Hossa.
Yeah,
I think it's fair. As much as he is old, I think it's fair to expect more from Marian Hossa, especially with the love that he gets.
I think he's sort of similar in Seabrook, that the 5 months of rest will do him well, and then that probably Toews and Hossa, if they're still playing on the first line together, will have a better line mate to complement them. I think this year they were playing a lot together where it was 2/3 lines, so they had to compensate more for that. So, but I mean, I won't disagree with you. He was disappointing. He was absolutely disappointing. Let's move over to second round picks, Adam. We're a little around the league. The second round is already underway. Again, unfortunately, the Blackhawks aren't playing in the second round, but let's make our second round picks. Moving through to the conference finals. So we have the Stars and the Blues. It is currently 1-1 with St. Louis winning in overtime off of David Backes' goal yesterday. Who wins that series?
the Blues.
I'll go Stars in 7.
I think I'd prefer to see the Stars win. I really hate them both, so I'm rooting for a meteor. But I think the Blues will win that series in 6 games.
I will go Stars in 7. I just, I don't know. I don't see any reason to trust the Stars goalies, but I just think Dallas's speed. I was watching yesterday, and St. Louis had no answer for it after. I mean, if Niemi or Lettinen can just make a few saves because they've allowed 3 goals on, or Lettinen allowed 3 goals on 3 shots in the first period. Dallas is a better team, at least in my mind, because they dominated play after the first period, and they dominated play for the most part in the first period. It's just, your goalie has to make some saves. That's at least what happened in my mind.
Just to that point, real quick, I think that the Blues can handle the Stars' speed if they don't play prevent defense. They did against the Blackhawks too. They go into shell mode when they have a lead, and it's really stupid. And I don't know why they do that. Ken Hitchcock said it's a natural tendency, not a coaching decision. They need to fix that. They need to make a coaching decision to change that tendency, and they can beat the Stars.
I don't know who had the tweet. Just as a quick point to that, but Sam Fells from the Committee Union retweeted it. The Blues under Ken Hitchcock have a 36.5 score adjusted Corsi in the third period in this era. So yeah, that's pretty bad. It's probably because they set back a lot.
They just need to work on.
That's just something. Yeah, well, at some point it's something you work on, and at some point it's just the team you are. And if it's that's who they've been for the past 4 or 5 years, it's not really going to change, Adam. At least in my mind.
I mean, I don't know. I definitely agree with that. But I think in the course of a 7-game series, I think that the Blues can look at it and go, hey, that's going to be an issue, and at least fix it, even if it's only for a small sample size.
Sharks. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say let's move on to Sharks and Preds. So
Sharks and Preds. Sharks looking like, in my mind, the Stanley Cup favorite at the moment. I know you'll disagree with me, Adam Yost.
I do not disagree, actually.
Sharks looking like the Stanley Cup favorite. 2-0 lead on the Predators. 2 straight games where they made a bit of a third period surge, late winning goals. But they look confident. They look like they're rolling. They don't really look like they have any weaknesses. They're just not fazed at all by the Predators. They weren't fazed by the Kings, so they're not going to be faced by the Predators either. And it just seems like they're an unmovable, unbreakable object at the moment. Adam, who wins that series?
The Sharks do in 5. I think the Preds will get 1 at home, despite the Sharks being the best road team.
I had a nice thought. The Sharks are the best road team in the league. Who has the better advantage when they go to Nashville? A team that has the best road record in the league, or a team that has to keep the teal out just to get its own fans in the stadium? So the Sharks will get at least 1. I wouldn't be surprised if they pull off the sweep of the Predators. But I'll say Sharks in 5 as well. They just look unstoppable at the moment. To the East, what do we have? Let's start with the lesser side. Isles and Bolts, the Tampa Bay Lightning and the New York Islanders. It's currently 1-1. Tampa Bay won the last game, dominating 4-1 after Isles stole game 1 off of a great John Tavares performance. Adam, who wins that series?
The Lightning win that series in 7 games.
Why?
They're just better.
Yeah, they're probably better.
They're better, and I think Ben Bishop is the better goaltender.
The only way the Isles win that series is if Tavares goes nuclear, just like he did against the Panthers. But the thing with the Panthers is that the Panthers are a worse team than the Lightning, and I can still see him dominating, but Tavares dominating it against the Lightning has a lesser effect because the Lightning are better.
Yeah, and I think Thomas Greiss has proven that he can be a good goalie for the Islanders, and he has played very well for them. But I just I think that series is going to come down to the fact that Ben Bishop is just better. And this, and the Lightning are just a better, deeper team, even without Anton Strawman. And if they can get Steven Stamkos back, which he's back to skating, if they can get him back in the lineup, they'll be a threat in the East.
Okay, so to probably the marquee matchup of the second round. Kind of living up to the hype, kind of not. Capitals and Pens, Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin, part two. Currently, the Penguins lead 3-1 in the third period with 1:06 to go. Barring a 17 seconds miracle, I think the Penguins are about to go up 2-1 in this series. But they're super and probably put themselves in a fantastic position to advance to the Eastern Conference Finals. But their superstar defenseman, Chris Letang, I saw you disagreeing with it. We don't have to get into the specifics of the suspension, but it will almost assuredly probably get some games, considering that he got nothing for a Duncan Keith-style slash against Victor Stahlberg in the first round against the Rangers. If Chris Letang is out for several games in the series or for the rest of the series, might be enough to swing the tide back in turn for the Capitals. Adam, who wins the series? Oh, actually, the Capitals just scored. Maybe we have 17 seconds.
Penguins in 6.
Penguins in 6.
I called that from the start. Penguins in 6.
I will go Penguins in 7. I am not Adam Yost, but yeah, I don't know. The Penguins just look faster than the Capitals. They seem to have them figured out. I think the Penguins are probably going on to win the East, but as we said earlier, the Sharks look better. The Sharks are the Cup favorite, at least in my mind. Okay.
Real quick, who do you got winning the West? Preds, or you pick Sharks and Stars. So Sharks or Stars. Who's winning the West?
Sharks over Stars.
I agree. I had the Blues, but Sharks over Blues. And then who you got winning in the East? You had Bolts and Penguins. Who do you have?
Penguins.
I agree with that. And then who do you have winning the Cup? Sharks or Pens?
Sharks.
I disagree there. I think the Penguins will beat.
I know you disagree. You disagree.
It's not even like a. I don't know what it is. I just think that maybe I'm just drawn to the Penguins more than the Sharks. Here's the thing: is that series is I'm fine with whoever wins. I don't hate either team. I know a lot of people in the Blackhawks fandom hate the Penguins. I don't, and teach their own, but I don't.
Yeah,
I really like Phil Kessel. I think that's what it is.
Eventually, you'll be proved wrong by just like Travis Yost was with the Ducks.
Whatever.
Okay, so Twitter questions quickly. We're gonna wrap this up. Our quick summer plans will also be in here. Okay, so Aaron, our good friend, asks, how does it feel to lose to a guy that owns multiple St. Louis area Arby's restaurants in Ken Hitchcock?
How does it feel to lose to a team with a couple of homeless men, motherfucker?
Who said that?
I said that to Aaron. I'm turning the question on him.
Oh, okay. But
how does it feel to lose to a team that employs 2 homeless men in Joe Thornton and Brent Burns?
That he doesn't have a podcast, so he asked us the question. Adam, how does it feel? Bad? Yes, bad. How many episodes of Barnwood Builders do you think Ken Hitchcock watched after Game 7?
I said before that I don't think it was that big of a deal to lose to the Blues because they were the better team. And I stand by that.
I think it was a big deal to lose to Ken Hitchcock. The fact that we lost to that guy, man.
We didn't lose to Ken Hitchcock. Like that's the thing is like we did not lose to Ken Hitchcock because Ken Hitchcock almost cost the Blues that series. Like the Blackhawks lost to the Blues. Joel Quenneville did not lose to Ken Hitchcock. So I dismissed the question.
All right. Zesty Ryan News asks, we kind of answered this, but at what point does Shaw get traded? This is a two-parter. At what point? But it's a two-parter, or a two-part tweet rather. At what point does Shaw get traded? Followed by him going to Bowman's office and begging to stay. Offers to sign a $500,000 contract and keep screaming, but all my friends are here, as he's dragged out by security.
Happens at the draft.
Brendan X, because apparently he's Tony X, the African-American man who discovered hockey Twitter.
Dude, that guy's awesome, by the way.
Brendan or Tony?
Tony. Well, both. Yeah, they're both awesome.
Both awesome. Which Chicago baseball team that isn't the Cubs should I root for, Adam?
The White Sox. Actually, the Joliet Jackhammers.
I don't know. Kane County Cougars, man. I've always been pretty close by
There's
them.
a couple of fun minor league teams around here. The Joliet Jackhammers are pretty good. Or actually, no, sorry, the Joliet Slammers now. They were the Jackhammers when I was a kid. And then there's also the Schaumburg Boomers, and there's one other one. But yeah, there's a lot of minor league teams, and they're cheap to go to, and minor league baseball is fun to watch. So go do that, but also go watch the White Sox too.
Okay, so Gibby asks, Soren Gibby, who is moving to Vegas?
Have you seen The Hangover? Zach Galifianakis' character from The Hangover is moving to Vegas.
Is he going to be the GM of the Las Vegas team in the NHL?
Dude, I fucking hope so.
Okay, Robert Ho, Sapperho, at Sapperho, SAPPRHO, asks, off-season video game recommendations?
Uncharted 4 comes out in a couple weeks, and so does
Mirror's Edge 2.
So does Mirror's Edge 2, which is going to be phenomenal. And also...
And hashtag NHL 17 will come out in September. So
NHL 17 comes out in September. I think camps will be back in by then, but Uncharted 4 and Mirror's Edge 2 should keep you plenty busy, and you'd have a lot of fun. And if you haven't played if you haven't played Batman, Arkham Knight, or any of the Arkham series before, those games are phenomenal. Some of the best games ever produced, and you should go play those.
Listen, for me, I'll have to say I'll agree with those. Also say Ratchet and Clank came out 2 weeks ago. You've heard me and Satchel talk about it. I mean, it's to me, it's like you know how SpongeBob is made for kids, but it has like underlying adult tones and adult jokes, and it's still just so much fun. Like that's what Ratchet is. Like, it's not a difficult game, and it has that kid aesthetic, but it's just a fun game. It's something you can sit down, relax, and play well. It has a sense of humor that anybody can appreciate. Easy to pick up, easy to play. Great characters, really colorful and fun. It's just maybe one of the better games I've played in 2016 so far. But I need to play a little more games.
I was never super into Ratchet and Clank as a kid, so I guess I'm just not as super excited about the movie and the new.
The movie sucked. I heard the movie sucked, but the new iteration of the game was great. Have you seen how? Oh my God! Every time I turn it up, it's just like so pleasing on the eyes, and you're playing. It's
maybe I'll borrow
I'm
it from
glossing
you.
over it. What's that?
Maybe you should let me borrow it.
How would I let you borrow it when you live in Indiana?
I don't live in. Oh my gosh! How many times did you do this? Okay.
Okay. No. Okay. Last question. We saw it. Hold on. Wait. Did I lose it? Okay. How will Adam and Jobert, my name on Twitter, so Robert, how will Adam and Robert keep themselves occupied until October? New hobbies, perhaps? Hashtag knitting, hashtag scrapbooking. SD Ryan R. Schulte asks that, and we'll finish up with this.
I will keep myself entertained by watching the White Sox and watching WWE because they're doing some good stuff right now in WWE. A lot of the storylines they have going on is fun. If you don't watch wrestling and you think that it's dumb because it's fake, I just encourage you to open your mind up a little bit because it's fun. To me, it's more fun to watch and understand because it's fake, and to like get involved and try to like figure out what their thoughts are and how they're like planning things out. Because everything is scripted. It's fun. I know people can't really get into that because of the fact that it is scripted, but to me, it's lots of fun to watch. So I'll be doing that. I'll be watching wrestling. I'll be watching the White Sox, and I get married in August.
Oh, you get married in August?
Boom! So
when?
I just said in August.
No, but like, when's the date?
August 5th.
August 5th.
So I'm gonna be
Adam
busy planning that. That's gonna be that'll probably be stressful. Holy crap, that's like 3 months away.
Wait, how much of it do you already have planned?
Most of it. It's just as it gets closer, it's gonna be more work.
Adam, are you gonna invite your Second City friends? No, I'm kidding. You don't have to. Listen, it's fine.
My voice just cracked on that. That was embarrassing.
No, you don't have to. I'm literally kidding. Yeah, dude, that's probably the best part. Fuck the White Sox.
Obviously that'll be good.
You're getting married.
But I mean, that's gonna be like one part of the summer. I was just
talking
about the summer in general.
But that's not just like this. That's not like the summer. That's like a
right.
life
well,
highlight.
that's like the biggest part of
life highlight. You know.
Right, that'll be the biggest part of the summer. But when you ask me how I'm going to be spending my summer, like in terms of the whole thing, what I will be doing is watching wrestling and the White Sox, and probably playing roller hockey, just kind of basically just doing some jack wagonery. Hopefully, and I'll also have it all be working. So
yeah, for me,
still looking for the big time writing gig with ESPN or something, but maybe not ESPN.
Same, dude.
But
Same.
But I'm sure they'll come calling eventually.
Yeah, I'm not a baseball guy, so I'm more of a snob. So I won't be spending any of my time really watching White Sox or Cubs baseball. I don't know. I'm planning on getting away this summer. I'm planning on making my career moves, like you said, applying for writing gigs, big time writing gigs. Hopefully, because that's the ultimate dream. Graduating this weekend. Adam, you graduated from college last week. I'm graduating from college this weekend. That's going to be fun. The next few weeks are going to be fun with the graduation parties and the culminating moments and the sappy tears and the cliche cheese and all that. That's all going to be great. The parties are going to be fun. The friends I've made over 4 years will be fun. All this, and then in the summer, I have an internship with a TV studio. I have jobs, work through all that. Going to travel in California. While you're getting married in August, I'm going to be in California, in Seattle, and Vancouver all of that month. So the off season will be busy, and hopefully it culminates, like you said, in a big time dream gig. It's going to be a fun summer, though. It's going to be a fun summer.
I think every summers are mostly good anyway.
Summers are mostly good anyway. All the fun stuff happens there.
Yeah.
Adam,
I want to talk about Civil War. We said we were going to talk about Civil War, and I know that we're running long here, but I want to talk about it.
All right, talk about Civil War.
Because I'm just excited for it. I mean, that I was excited for Batman vs. Superman and that I liked it despite its faults and despite everybody else in the whole wide world hating it. But Civil War is just going to be a flat-out better movie. And I have WWE Raw on in the background, and they showed a sneak peek, and I didn't even get to hear the sound in it, but it featured Black Panther and the Winter Soldier fighting, and it was so badass, and I'm just freaking hype as shit for this movie, dude.
The contrast, and I'm not going to be the hater, I'm just being honest, the contrast in how well in tone and planning and organization, like the focus and like just how everything's just so fleshed out. Every character has its own development, and you get invested in everybody. Which Marvel does with this movie is just, that's what gets you excited because that they're gonna do it right. That they're gonna nail the characters. That now that they officially have Spider-Man back, that Spider-Man just gonna be badass and just honor the character the way it's supposed to be, and everyone's gonna fall in love with him and have these have a fanboy crush on him. I'm unbelievably excited for it. I have a busy weekend coming up, so I really want to fit it in like that. I have like a life culminating moment weekend coming up in terms of like graduating from college and like all the different celebrations that'll be going around, and I'm so excited for it that I want to fit it in somewhere. I want to find like 2.5 hours to fit it in there while I'm going to be exhausted from celebrating everything else. Like, I'm unbelievably hyped for it. Marvel does a fantastic job. I mean, to me, Guardians of the Galaxy is the best Marvel movie ever, and this might beat it. We were talking about it in the pre-show.
Oh, this will beat it.
We'll see.
I think, okay, I don't want to debate. I think that, basically, okay, I don't want to debate about what's the best already, but I think that at the end of the Marvel series, and this might be a little bit of a hot take, and I really have no base to really judge this on, but I feel like we'll look back on Civil War as probably being the best movie of the franchise.
I'm kind of a little miffed that it's not just being called Avengers 3 because it's fucking Avengers 3, man.
You know what? But sorry, I don't mean to cut you off there. So there's a lot of theories that someone's going to die. And people think it's going to be Captain America because Captain America is the titular character. And so if that's going to how it's going to be, I am like okay with it, but I also just don't want Captain America to die.
Captain America's not going to die. Rhodey's going to die, and plot twist. I think they'll kill off. I think they kill off Stark.
Whoa!
Because everybody's expecting. Listen,
but that's actually okay. Here's the thing. I don't know. Okay, go ahead and do your thing. Okay, say what you want to say, and then I want to respond after that.
Because here's how I look at it. when all these leaks come out, when everybody's speculating about who's gonna die, everybody's like, all right, they're totally gonna kill off Cap and they're gonna make Bucky the new Captain America,
which is from the comics.
Yeah, so that's what everybody's expecting. That's what everybody's expecting. But nobody's ever considered that they might pull a reversal and have their own story and not follow it all the way to the end. To give that shock value to write a new story.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised if Stark dies. I know Robert Downey Jr. is signed on for several more movies, but when has comic book characters have and superheroes have been resurrected before, so it wouldn't be shocking if he came back in a future movie through some kind of bullshit magical fictional means, obviously. But I think Tony Stark's gonna die. That's my theory. Because they want their reversal. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that would be a major twist because it would completely go against what is set to come, or I shouldn't say set to come, what happens in the comics.
Yeah, it would shatter everyone's expectations, and I think that's what they want to do.
But the one thing that I would say that I think you can sort of dismiss that with is that you said he has movies left. He actually said that there's going to be an Iron Man 4, I believe. He has. I'm looking it up right now. He's currently his contract right now is currently movie to movie, and the only one that is included for sure is the third Avengers movie. So maybe he could die and kind of make a weird cameo in there. Who knows?
Maybe they resurrect him in Iron Man 4. All I'm saying is, like...
Resurrection's not really a big thing in the Marvel Universe.
Yeah, that's true. It happens more in DC. I don't know. I'm just saying that, like, with all of the fanboys and I'm one of the fanboys and nerds already sort of ruining for me that it'll be Cap, I'm kind of hoping that it's Stark. Even though I'm Team Iron... Oh, wait, hold on. Better final question. Even though I'm Team Iron Man, are you Team Iron Man or are you Team Cap?
Wait, you're Team Iron Man?
I'm Team Iron Man, dude. Fuck yeah. Fuck Captain America.
We need to have a discussion.
Dude, no.
Okay, wait. Okay. I know this is a Blackhawks podcast, but we're going to geek out for a minute. Okay, first of all, I want to just ask this question, and I don't mean to go hipster or anything. Have you read the comic of the Civil War?
Yes.
You have?
Yes.
And you're still Team Iron Man.
But they're not writing it in that same...
But even watching you know that's like the premise of it. It's still the premise. From the trailers, you know that Iron Man wants like the government agency to patrol them, and Captain America thinks that that's wrong.
Listen, Adam.
And it is wrong. They can't. If the government controls them, they lose their power and ability to just do what is good because it is good, which is what they freaking do.
Unpopular opinion, incredibly unpopular opinion, but my opinion, I just don't really like Captain America as a character. I appreciate like the double-edged swordness of Stark, how he's more of a flawed human being and that, you know, he's edged more towards alcoholicness and how vain and greedy he is, but he's also, also simultaneously a hero, while Captain America's this patriotic symbol that never does anything wrong and never has a bad thought and all that. Like, that's for me purely the reason. Like, I just, even though I think Stark's going to die, I kind of want to see Stark kick Captain America's ass before he does, because I really hate Captain America. For me, like, I almost hate Captain America as much as I hate Superman, because both characters are just like, they don't, to me, are just like these idealist characters, like these idealist perfect characters that I can't appreciate. Even though I know there are more facets to them, there are more you read through the comics, and I've read through some of them. I haven't read through all of their entire stories. I know there's more to Superman and Captain America, but over the overall thesis of both, I just don't like them. That's why I've always liked Batman. I've always liked Iron Man. They're sort of foils so much more, and that's why I'm Team Iron Man.
See, I think I'm more excited for a lot of the characters, and I like a lot more of the characters that are on Team Iron Man. Like, I'm super stoked for Black
That's the thing
Panther,
too.
super stoked for Spider-Man. But overall, I'm Captain America. I'm Team Captain America because I want Team Captain America to win.
I mean, they're gonna win anyway. Of course, they're gonna win. They
Plus,
have
Captain America has Ant-Man, and Ant-Man's freaking awesome.
Spider-Man's better than Ant-Man.
Well, duh, but Captain doesn't mean that Ant-Man isn't cool.
No, yeah, he is.
That's
cool.
like saying oh well, Batman's better than Nightwing. Like, yeah, no, duh, Batman's better than Nightwing, but Nightwing's still a cool character too. Or the Blackhawks are better than the Kings. Well, yeah, but they're both good, but they're just because the Blackhawks are better doesn't mean that the Kings aren't good.
Closed caption at Aaron. Yeah, the Captain America's team's gonna win either way, Adam. I'm just saying that, like, I'm rooting because that's how it goes. I mean, that's the good storyline. That's like they're the good guys, but I'm rooting for Team Iron Man anyway.
I think when you say that they're going to win, I think that I don't want to spoil the ending of the comics just in case that they go that route. But I think that instead of having the end of the comics that they have, they will just kind of have a nondescript ending where neither team really wins, and that there's just like they reach a point where they think, okay, we need like this. The fighting is stupid, which that is sort of part of the comics. But I don't want to say what happens in the comics again, like I said, but I just think that they will go, okay, actually this is dumb. We should stop fighting each other. And I think, and I wouldn't be.
Someone dies, no one wins.
Right? Yeah, someone's gonna die, and then they're all gonna be like, "Well, what the hell are we doing?" And then I think and I kind of hope this is gonna be the case. I hope that there's like a bad guy angle, like an actual bad guy, like how like Batman versus Superman. The draw was Batman and Superman are gonna fight, but there's also the Lex Luthor angle. I hope there's like this like secret bad guy angle that we just don't know about yet. That's going to happen. Could be Dr. Doom. It'd be interesting if it was Doctor Strange, since he has the movie coming out.
But Doctor Strange isn't a villain. Maybe a surprise character. You mean, right?
Oh yeah, I guess that's what I mean.
Surprise character. That would be pretty sick if they had a surprise cameo. Oh my god, I'm so excited for that's a conversation for a future podcast.
You know what I just did? I just got mixed up because Doctor Strange is not a villain. You're right. I got mixed up with DC villain Hugo Strange, who's a doctor and is a villain.
Different.
I just got very.
One's like a fantastical character, and another's like just a brainiac. But yeah, the movie Doctor Strange is a different conversation for another time. I'm geeked about Benedict Cumberbatch playing an awesome character. That's a conversation for a future podcast for next season. Adam, let's wrap this up.
This is one of our longest ones, I think.
This is one of our longest ones. It was a post-mortem one. We had a lot to get to. I think this was one of our busier ones, too.
We even skipped some topics.
We should have skipped some topics, but we were gonna.
Well, we did. We had more on the roster, but
we did have more on the roster, but then we had to geek out with Civil War.
Yeah.
But to all those that have listened all year, to all those that have come along with us, I mean, I think I speak for Adam in saying he'll probably have his own words to say, but we really appreciate it, guys. We're still growing along. We're getting more listeners by the day. We're getting more comfortable working with each other, and we're really happy with how things are going. We only plan to make this bigger. We only plan to work with our own careers and really have everything progress. We appreciate you all. Appreciate all of your support and all of your feedback, all of your positive feedback to us on Twitter and in other outlets. Not only for the podcast, but also all of our Second City work, if you read that as well. I mean, I can't say enough, and how appreciative someone like me as an aspiring journalist is, and I know Adam feels the same way, to have this kind of positive commentary come back for us, and to see how much it's grown. I mean, we've only been doing these kinds of things for 4 months. I've only been working with Second City since October, for example, and just to see how much everything's spiked up. It's really awesome to see.
Yeah, I agree with that, and we'll do podcasts over the summer. We're not going to be every week now because obviously we won't have as much to talk about. But when there's big news, we'll discuss it. When there's, around the draft time, we'll probably talk about some stuff. When as roster moves go down, we'll talk about some stuff. So it might not be regular, every Sunday night like we currently have it going, but there will be podcasts that we do over summer. And like Robert said, he basically hit all the bases. We're very appreciative and thankful that people take the time to listen to a couple of young millennial idiots talk about hockey.
And superheroes and video.
Yeah, and that we argue and are fanboys a little bit. But this is lots of fun. We enjoy doing it for you. We hope you enjoy listening. And a disappointing end to the Blackhawks season, like we talked about. But not the end of this era, and they'll come back stronger. And at the end of the day, go Blackhawks.
Go Blackhawks, indeed. We'll have a lot of fun stuff for you guys over the summer. Keep in tune over the podcast. Keep in touch with our work over at Second City Hockey. Follow us on Twitter. Follow the main Second City account at 2ND City Hockey. Follow the Ice Cold Podcast account at Ice Cold Podcast. I believe it's all capitals too, or rather the first three letters.
It's not all capital.
Okay. Oh, wait. Ice Cold Podcast. You'll find it.
It doesn't matter.
We're pretty
capitals,
big.
Capitals don't matter for Twitter tags anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't matter anyway. You should be able to find it. Follow Adam at _lowercase Adam Hess. Got that right finally in my rotating back to this, or my tag team back to this. Follow me at Robert Zaglinski on Twitter. As I said, we're gonna have a lot of fun stuff over Twitter. Keep in tune for something cool we'll have on Wednesday. That's a surprise. Yeah, I mean, this ride is only beginning. We're just millennial idiots with the keyboard, like Adam said. But we have fun doing this, and we're growing along with doing this, and hopefully this eventually becomes something more substantial. We appreciate all of you. Signing off. I don't know when we'll be back. There'll be more news. We'll be back when there's big news. But signing off for now. This has been the Second City Hockey Ice Cold Podcast. Stay classy, everyone.